Namaste India and welcome to Trans India Real People, Real Emotions. Last week we were talking to Mr. Ramratan Singhi of the Sure Group and he told us about his Namaste India trip. It is not very often that we see transporters go on a road trip to understand what the highways are all about, to understand the facilities for drivers and to understand what are the critical bottlenecks along the routes that they operate on. Ram went on the Namaste India trip last year and while we are talking to him today, he is already packing his bags for Namaste India Part 2. In our interaction with Ram, we will know more about the Namaste India trip as well as what are the future plans of the Sure Group. But first, here are the headlines of the week. Fuel price hike continues. Small hikes in fuel prices hurting the transport industry. Authorities have issued over 1.98 crore traffic challans worth rupees 1,898 crore in 2021, says Nitin Gadkari. Bharat-Benz expands reach in central India, inaugurates new dealership in Jabalpur. Delhi NCR states sign agreement to facilitate seamless movement of passenger vehicles. In 2021, Delhi, the most polluted capital in the world, no Indian city meets WHO air quality standards, says a report. India achieves $400 billion goods export target for the first time. More news and our interaction with Ram coming up after this very short break. Stay tuned. You are watching Trans India, Real People, Real Emotions.
महिंद्रा ये गारंटी देते हैं कि उनका ब्लेजो एक्स सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज देता है, वरना कर दीजिए ट्रक वापस।
सॉरी अजय, महिंद्रा फ्यूरियो है। एक्शन।
महिंद्रा गारंटी देते हैं कि उनका फ्यूरियो सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज देता है, नहीं तो
एक्चुअली जयो, महिंद्रा जयो है, थोड़ा चेंज है। एंड एक्शन।
महिंद्रा ये गारंटी देते हैं कि उनका जियो सबसे चल क्या रहा है यहाँ पे?
मैम, ये चारों ट्रक ज्यादा माइलेज देते हैं, चारों।
तो ऐसा बोलो ना, ब्लेजो एक्स, फ्यूरियो, फ्यूरियो 7 और जयो। महिंद्रा के ये सभी ट्रक्स देते हैं सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज की गारंटी, नहीं तो कर दीजिए इन्हें वापस। महिंद्रा, देश की सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज देने वाली ट्रक रेंज।
Welcome back, friends. I am Girishtranstopics and you are watching Trans India, Real People, Real Emotions. Before we get into our interaction with Ram, let us see what's been happening in the road transport industry this week. The government had kept a tight lid on fuel prices while the state elections were going on. But with the elections a thing of the past, the government has been raising the prices of fuel almost every day. But what is more concerning for the road transport industry is that these hikes are coming in very small measures. We see a daily hike of maybe 70 paise, 80 paise. Now how does the transporter pass on these hikes to the customers? Imagine the plight of a transporter or a trucker. आप सोचिए, आप ये कंसाइनमेंट जम्मू से ले जा रहे हैं कहीं साउथ इंडिया में, जिसका टाइम पीरियड कैन बी एनीवेयर बिटवीन 5 to 7 days। जब वो जम्मू से चलता है, डीजल प्राइस एक एक्स अमाउंट होता है, लेकिन बाय द टाइम वो साउथ इंडिया पहुंचता है वो एक्स प्लस 5 रुपए, 6 रुपए, 7 रुपए भी हो सकता है। वो कैसे बताए कस्टमर को कि इस जर्नी का फ्रेट क्या होगा, और क्या ट्रांसपोर्टर के पास इतना मार्जिन है कि वो 7 रुपए का हिट पर लीटर एक ट्रिप में ले सके। The government has not been thinking about the road transport industry at all. In fact, our finance minister, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, made a rather shocking statement in parliament. She said, and I quote, "People have been asking how can you raise the fuel price? It has nothing to do with elections. This war which is happening in Ukraine has an impact on all countries. Supply chains are disrupted, particularly of crude oil." However, despite the war, the process, or rather the thought process of raising diesel prices by a few paise every day is definitely not suiting the road transport industry. Former AIMTC President Mr. Malkit Singh had different thoughts about this price hike. Listen to what Malkit ji had to say about the recent developments on diesel price hike.
तेल की बढ़ती हुई कीमतों ने निकाला परिवहन उद्योग का तेल और आम जनता का। पिछले 8 दिनों में 7 बार लगातार तेल की कीमतों में बढ़ोतरी हुई है, यानी लगभग 5 रुपए प्रति लीटर पेट्रोल और डीजल महंगा हो गया है। इससे परिवहन उद्योग को काफी नुकसान हो रहा है। परिवहन उद्योग सरकार की इस नीति की निंदा करती है और जैसे कि आप जानते हैं कि हमारा 65% ऑपरेशनल कॉस्ट डीजल के माध्यम से जाता है और स्वाभाविक है अगर हमारी लागत बढ़ेगी तो हमारे किराए में भी बढ़ोतरी होगी। इससे जो भी एसेंशियल नॉन एसेंशियल जो कमोडिटीज़ है उसमें बढ़ोतरी होगी, यानी महंगाई में बढ़ोतरी होगी। और जो महंगाई उचले स्तर पर है, आने वाले दिनों में ट्रक भाड़ों में माल ढुलाई में बढ़ोतरी होने के कारण इसका असर महंगाई पर भी गिरेगा। जहां पर इस रोज की तेल की बढ़ती हुई कीमतों से प्रभावित 20 करोड़ लोग परिवहन उद्योग से जुड़े हैं, इसी तरह 130 करोड़ भारतीय भी इस महंगाई की मार झेल रहे हैं। जिस तरह सरकार ने दिवाली बोनस के माध्यम से 10 से 12 रुपए प्रति लीटर एक्साइज ड्यूटी कम की थी और फिर चुनावी बोनस दिया था, 137 दिन कोई भी तेल की कीमतों में बढ़ोतरी नहीं हुई थी। हम सरकार से अपील करते हैं कि वही फार्मूला अडॉप्ट करें और तेल की कीमतों को नियंत्रण कंट्रोल में रखें, क्योंकि इसका सीधा असर आम जनता पर, परिवहन उद्योग पर और महंगाई पर आता है। और हम सरकार से ये भी अपील करते हैं कि जो स्लो पॉइजन धीरे धीरे डीजल की कीमतों को बढ़ाकर हमें परिवहन उद्योग को नष्ट किया जा रहा है, इट इज बेटर टू गिव ए साइनेट पिल। हमारी सरकार से अपील है कि 3 महीने में एक बार तेल की कीमतों में बढ़ोतरी होनी चाहिए। वन नेशन वन टैक्स के माध्यम से इसे जीएसटी के दायरे में लाना चाहिए और देश भर में एक सामान्य तेल की कीमतें होनी चाहिए। बाल मलकीत सिंह, चेयरमैन कोर कमेटी, ऑल इंडिया मोटर ट्रांसपोर्ट कांग्रेस।
The road transport industry for long has been dependent on the supply demand theory. जिस तरह डीजल के दाम पहले बढ़े हैं और जो आज बढ़ रहे हैं और जो आगे भी बढ़ते रहेंगे, रोड ट्रांसपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री को सप्लाई डिमांड थ्योरी से निकलकर एक ऑपरेटिंग कॉस्ट बेस्ड फ्रेट रेट मेथड पर आना पड़ेगा। आप सब जानते हैं कि रोड ट्रांसपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री का सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज है ऑपरेटिंग कॉस्ट पास ऑन करना अपने कस्टमर्स को। 1 अप्रैल से टोल टैक्स भी बढ़ गए हैं और ऐसे कई खर्चे हैं, बहुत छोटे मोटे खर्चे हैं जो शायद एक ट्रांसपोर्टर अपने ऑपरेटिंग कॉस्ट में गिन भी नहीं पाता। You never know how much corruption you will have to pay on the highways. You cannot determine that figure beforehand. So how does the transporter exactly fix his freight rate? But while rise in diesel prices is certainly an issue for the road transport industry, the bigger challenge that the industry is facing today is the daily revision of prices. एक समय था दोस्तों जब रोड ट्रांसपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री एक छोटे से डीजल प्राइस हाइक के लिए भी स्ट्राइक पर चले जाती थी, गवर्नमेंट को लेटर्स लिखती थी। लेकिन आज हालात ऐसे बदल गए हैं कि ट्रांसपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री की सबसे बड़ी डिमांड है कि डीजल प्राइस हाइक को डेली रिविजन से बढ़ाकर एटलीस्ट क्वार्टरली या हाफ ईयरली किया जाए। एंड दिस इज राइट। ट्रांसपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री गवर्नमेंट से ये नहीं कह रही कि आप फ्यूल प्राइसेस पर लॉस करें, लेकिन कम से कम एक ऐसा मेथड निकाले जिससे रोड ट्रांसपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री पर बर्डन नहीं पड़े। द प्रेजेंट सिस्टम इज नॉट हेल्पिंग द ट्रांसपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री एट ऑल। और हम भी गवर्नमेंट से ये रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे कि वो इस बात को स्टडी करे कि डीजल प्राइसेस को हाफ ईयरली या कम से कम क्वार्टरली रिवाइज करें। जो डेली रिविजन का मेथड है दैट इज प्रूविंग वेरी डिफिकल्ट फॉर द ट्रकर्स एंड द ट्रांसपोर्टर्स। We hope the government will look into this seriously. And so friends, while the prices of fuel may be going up, but so are the sales of vehicles, the movement of vehicles as well. Another thing that has been going up is the traffic violations, which also results in higher number of challans. Authorities have issued over 1.98 crore challans worth rupees 1,898.73 crore for traffic violations across the country in 2021. The Parliament was informed. In a written reply to the Lok Sabha, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways Nitin Gadkari said 2,15,328 cases of road rage and rash driving were reported in 2021. According to the data provided by the minister, Delhi has seen the highest number of challans at 71,89,824, followed by Tamil Nadu with 36,26,000 and Kerala at 17,41,932 challans. Authorities have issued over 40 lakh challans worth rupees 417 crore for traffic violations across the country between January 1 and 15th March 2022, Mr. Gadkari added. And as we said earlier, vehicle sales have been going up and so are the number of dealerships to service these vehicles, including commercial vehicles. Expanding its footprint in the central region, Daimler India Commercial Vehicles in association with PPS Trucking inaugurated the new Bharat Benz dealership in Jabalpur, Madhya Pradesh. The opening of the new touch point reflects the increasing demand for Bharat-Benz products in Jabalpur, a city in the central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh. In the near future, PPS Trucking plans to open 5 new touchpoints in the Jabalpur territory, namely Satna, Chhatarpur, Chhindwara, Singrauli and Sagar. The 5 new Bharat-Benz outlets will further increase the brand's presence to 11 touchpoints in Madhya Pradesh. Mr. Rajaram Krishnamurthy, Vice President Marketing, Sales and Customer Service at Daimler India Commercial Vehicles said, fueled by the government's aggressive investments across industries and infrastructure projects in Madhya Pradesh, the construction sector is experiencing rapid growth. This acts as a major catalyst for rising demand for commercial vehicles, especially in the tipper segment where we already enjoy a strong customer base. We have witnessed a strong demand for Bharat-Benz products in the first quarter with the gradual reopening of the economy. This new dealership will further bring us closer to our customers and solidify Bharat-Benz market presence in central India. Friends, we have always been saying, or rather we have always had that mindset that India is one country. But when it comes to road transport industry, India is not one country, but India is a conglomerate of small countries, which include Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka, Kerala. The list is long. The transporters and the truck drivers in particular will know how difficult or how harrowing it is to cross these state borders. Imagine the International Road Union, which is a conglomerate of European countries. Trucks cross those borders without being stopped. There's one document which the transporter or the trucker has to procure, and he can travel anywhere from Germany to Austria to Switzerland. And it is really sad that to date India still has state borders which are roadblocks for the road transport industry. However, in a bid to ensure seamless movement of passenger vehicles, yes, this is only for passenger vehicles, in the National Capital Region, the governments of Delhi, Haryana, Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh have signed an agreement for single point taxation for mass public transport vehicles of state corporations, the Union Housing and the Urban Affairs Ministry said on Friday. The agreement also provides for exemption in taxes, including road taxes, to buses and other vehicles of educational institutions. The ministry notified that the NCR states have agreed to forego such revenues in the larger public interest of a cleaner NCR. Such revenue loss is estimated to be around Rs 100 crore annually. Hence, this new combined RCTA for stage and contract carriages in NCR heralds higher level of interstate cooperation under the leadership of the NCR Planning Board, the statement said. We really hope that someday these states will sit together and come up with a method where trucks which carry essential commodities between these states are given some ease of movement. Ease of business, ease of movement are things which are a luxury for the road transport industry. The government keeps talking a lot. We are providing ease of business, but that doesn't seem to apply to the road transport industry. Meanwhile, with the vehicle population going up, the government also has found a new thing to blame the road transport industry for: pollution. Is road transport industry the only contributor for pollution? Well, the NGT definitely seems to think that. It has put a ban across various segments of vehicles, and trucks especially are not allowed in the National Capital Region after a certain age. What about the BS6 trucks? Are they also polluting? The NGT is still quiet on that. The norms have not yet been relaxed for NGT trucks. But let's see how bad is the situation of pollution in Delhi. Delhi was found to be the most polluted capital in the world for the 4th consecutive year in 2021, and 35 of the 50 cities with the worst air quality were in India, according to a new report. In 2021, none of the cities in India met the prescribed World Health Organization air quality standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter, stated the World Air Quality Report 2021, prepared by Swiss organization IQ Air and released globally. New Delhi saw a 14.6% increase in PM 2.5 concentrations in 2021, with the levels rising to 96.4 micrograms per cubic meter from 84 micrograms per cubic meter in 2020. India also continues to feature prominently among the most polluted cities, with 35 of the top 50 polluted cities being in this country. But friends, once again we are coming back to a thing, that vehicle movement in India is rising and rising very fast. But that also helps the country, especially movement of trucks. हम हमेशा से कहते आ रहे हैं, हर घर को, हर इंडस्ट्री को रोड ट्रांसपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री की ज़रूरत है. हाल ही में इंडिया ने एक और बहुत बड़ा अचीवमेंट हासिल किया. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that for the first time India achieved its target of reaching $400 billion in exports. He tweeted, India set an ambitious target of $400 billion of goods exports and achieves this target for the first time ever. I congratulate our farmers, weavers, MSMEs, manufacturers, exporters for this success. This is the key milestone in our Atmanirbhar Bharat journey. And once again, the government missed out an important segment, an important sector that is so vital for the country's economy, and that has a huge contribution in this target of $400 billion exports. How do these goods get to the ports? हम ये दावे के साथ कह सकते हैं कि majority of these goods traveled by road in trucks. But while the government may have forgotten the road transport industry, we will not. We salute every driver, every trucker, every transporter who makes this journey possible, who makes this record possible. हम हर उस ड्राइवर, हर उस ट्रकर, हर उस ट्रांसपोर्टर को सलाम करते हैं जो आपके घर तक खाना पहुंचाता है, आपके दिन की बाकी की चीज़ें पहुंचाता है, हर एक फैक्ट्री तक रॉ मटेरियल पहुंचाता है और हर एक फैक्ट्री से फिनिश्ड गुड्स भारत के हर एक कोने में, हर एक मार्केट तक पहुंचाता है, हर एक घर तक पहुंचाता है. Friends, this industry is important for all of us. I have said this before, road transport industry is like the air we breathe. We may not see it, but we need it. And friends, coming up after this very short break, we will see what the future of the road transport industry is, or rather what the future of the Sure Group is, which has taken giant strides in achieving success in a segment where most people are still struggling. Ramratan Singhi is an accidental transporter, but yet who entered this business based on strong studies and research. And his research was not just confined, and most surprisingly, his research also included what kind or what model of truck he should be using. We heard about that in part 1 of his interview, which you can always go back and listen to again. But after this break, let's see what Ram has to say about the future of his company, and of course we will be talking about Namaste India. Don't go anywhere. You are watching Trans India, real people, real emotions.
महिंद्रा ये गारंटी देते हैं कि उनका ब्लेजो एक्स सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज देता है, वरना कर दीजिए ट्रक वापस.
सॉरी अजय, महिंद्रा फ्यूरियो है. एक्शन.
महिंद्रा गारंटी देते हैं कि उनका फ्यूरियो सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज देता है, नहीं तो
एक्चुअली जयो, महिंद्रा जयो है, थोड़ा चेंज है. एंड एक्शन.
महिंद्रा ये गारंटी देते हैं कि उनका जियो सबसे. चल क्या रहा है यहाँ पे?
मैम, ये चारों ट्रक ज्यादा माइलेज देते हैं, चारों.
तो ऐसा बोलो ना, ब्लेजो एक्स, फ्यूरियो, फ्यूरियो 7 और जयो. महिंद्रा के ये सभी ट्रक्स देते हैं सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज की गारंटी, नहीं तो कर दीजिए इन्हें वापस. महिंद्रा, देश की सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज देने वाली ट्रक रेंज.
Namaste India and welcome back to Trans India, real people, real emotions. In our interaction segment today, we continue our discussion with Mr. Ramratan Singhi to know more about his journey on the highway and the future of the Sure Group. So Ram, drivers has been one of the biggest challenges for the road transport industry. There has been shortage of drivers, and of course there's training of drivers, which is an area which requires a lot of work. How did you handle the situation, especially when you need double drivers for your kind of work?
So very relevant question here, because drivers is something even before we entered the industry, when we were discussing about entering into trucking, people did give us a heads up that India's biggest problem is driver shortage. We used to hear about it, we used to learn about it. Sure Group's thinking about drivers is little different than the traditional industry thinking. One of the problems that we try to analyze is why drivers are in short supply. So we understood that for a country of the demographics of India, typically speaking, there is no shortage of people who would want jobs, and driver jobs is one of the jobs that can be taken up. It's not such a challenging job that it cannot be done. It doesn't require so much of training or skills. But the driver shortage problem is primarily an issue of compensation. So what we have to look at is that if you get driver the right compensation, then getting drivers per se is not as challenging as people in the industry have made it to be. One of the things we focused on is driver safety and driver comfort. So when we had these Daimler trucks, these were the most ergonomic cabins with driver safety and driver comfort being the topmost priority for our fleet, and that is the reason why we selected this particular brand of trucks to be our fleet partner, because we wanted to focus on driver safety and driver comfort. So I think with that being out of the way, the second challenge was driver compensation. So how do you make a package for a driver which incentivizes him to drive more and to be on the road as much as possible with the least amount of botheration? So we have a package plan where it is 30-70. So 30% is his fixed component of the overall package, 70% is variable. The variable part gives him a lot of internal motivation to drive more, because the more he drives, the more he earns. One of the ways in this industry has been working on driver package even before we entered was that the pay in terms of cash was always limited. It was always in terms of diesel. So if you know the industry, there is a certain diesel norm that you give to the driver for a particular trip. From that, the driver saves the diesel, and that is his earning. So if you think intuitively, it comes out very clearly that one of the ways to improve driver earnings will be to go ahead and buy a truck which gives the best mileage and therefore leaves driver with enough upside to drive more. And that is what exactly we did. We did a lot of research on different truck types, mileage of different truck types, and we figured it out that the way forward would be to buy the most fuel efficient truck so that driver earns more, and if he earns more, he will always remain with the vehicle, and the strategy has paid off for us.
Ram, last year you undertook a road trip called Namaste India. What were the learnings from this road trip, and what actually motivated you to go on this trip?
Yeah. So when you are into long haul road transportation industry, you are always exposed to various kind of risks and various kind of issues on road, and some of that input you get from drivers, and sometimes you are always thinking of how can you improve the overall trucking kilometers per month, and how can you improve your operations. So the thought came about that why not go on a road trip and try to figure it out ourselves. What are the major challenges on road? So the road trip was done in my car. I started, we kind of called it Namaste India trip, and this was part 1 of the trip. We will shortly be doing part 2 of the trip as well. So the trip started from NCR. We went to Mundra, from Mundra to Ahmedabad, from there to Mumbai, Mumbai to Goa, Goa to Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Nagpur, and then back to NCR. So this was the first loop. The thought process was, of course, to understand the challenges of the drivers, but also the challenges of the ecosystem as a whole in terms of the road infrastructure, in terms of the other challenges that are there on road, safety being one of them. So we also figured it out that in MP particularly, night driving should not be done, particularly midnight driving should not be done, because it's quite empty. So these are the kind of things that we collected. We collected a lot of information and data during the trip. So yeah, it was a thought process that we should experience it firsthand and learn ourselves.
Ram, how many kilometers did you cover during this journey, and any particular observations? Also, would you like to give some suggestions on how the infrastructure can get better?
Right. So this journey, the first leg of the trip, we did 7,000 kilometers, and some of the insights that I would like to share with you during the journey, apart from the typical issues that road transport industry faces, is that while the National Highway Authority is developing a lot of highways all across India, what we really figured it out was that for the key economic hubs, the road infrastructure remains still a lot of underdeveloped. To give you an insight, Karnal to Kandla is one of India's most important economic corridor, because Karnal is where your rice bowl is, and Kandla or Mundra is where the export ports are. So this is one of the most important artery, I would call it. When you travel on this road, you will see that the moment you enter Gujarat, it's impossible to drive because the road conditions is so bad. The entire road once you enter Gujarat from Rajasthan border is broken badly. Having said that, you have to drive most of the trailers drive on this road because that is a business that is mostly taken care by the large trailers. And on the other side they have this coal which comes from Kandla and Mundra port back to the northern hubs, populated corridor in terms of trucking. So you have the first problem is extremely bad road conditions once you enter the Gujarat part of the particular highway. The other challenge was that there were lots of animals and cows on the road. Now when you have such a important highway and if you have this kind of infrastructure, driver will find it nearly impossible to drive safely. There will be either accidents or he will hit something or the other. So we thought that the government should really keep track of these important economic corridors. While building new highways and new expressways is great, but upgrading the existing highways can unlock a lot of potential value and also can generate a lot of logistics cost reduction just by doing some extremely simple activities like strengthening the existing road conditions on these particular corridors. Similarly, when we were traveling from Nagpur to Hyderabad, now on paper if you see Nagpur to Hyderabad should have been one of the best roads in India because it was just 7-8 years back. This was 4-lane and it was open to the public. But when you go today there, that entire stretch is broken and you can't drive over a speed of 40 in that particular stretch, and that also with lots and lots of jerking and it will inconvenience any driver. So I was quite surprised that some of these key economic corridors have been left out by the government while they are focusing on developing new highways, let's say like Purvanchal Express, which is okay, but it is somewhere where you don't have industries at the moment, neither do you have any traffic to really justify an investment of that scale. Similarly, if you look at South Gujarat, was another observation that I wanted to share with you. So Gujarat, recently got ranked as the first #1 state in the logistics ranking of India, which is fantastic because it's also the India's industrial hub. But if you travel from, let's say, down from Vadodara towards Mumbai, you will see that almost every city of Gujarat is on the highways. So you cannot drive safely on those highways because there is so many bikes, so many people, so many animals on the road. It's impossible to drive at a consistent speed. Now suppose on those roads if government had done a simple elevated expressways to bypass these cities, maybe that would have cost maybe 8 to 10,000 crores versus let's say 1 lakh crore that's being kind of spent on Delhi-Mumbai expressway, which again is required. But just a small fraction of that could have de-bottlenecked one of the most important arteries of India. So I believe that this is where my learnings from my trip were in terms of the general road infrastructure.
Well friends, we heard about the journey, the road trip, Namaste India. But what are the plans of the Sure Group going forward? Where does Ram plan to scale up? Where does Ram plan to take the Sure Group in the coming future? We'll know more about this coming up right after this very short break. You are watching Trans India, real people, real emotions.
महिंद्रा ये गारंटी देते हैं कि उनका ब्लेजो एक्स सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज देता है, वरना कर दीजिए ट्रक वापस।
सॉरी अजय, महिंद्रा फ्यूरियो है। एक्शन।
महिंद्रा गारंटी देते हैं कि उनका फ्यूरियो सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज देता है, नहीं तो
एक्चुअली जयो, महिंद्रा जयो है, थोड़ा चेंज है। एंड एक्शन।
महिंद्रा ये गारंटी देते हैं कि उनका जियो सबसे चल क्या रहा है यहाँ पे?
मैम, ये चारों ट्रक ज्यादा माइलेज देते हैं, चारों।
तो ऐसा बोलो ना, ब्लेजो एक्स, फ्यूरियो, फ्यूरियो 7 और जयो। महिंद्रा के ये सभी ट्रक्स देते हैं सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज की गारंटी, नहीं तो कर दीजिए इन्हें वापस। महिंद्रा, देश की सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज देने वाली ट्रक रेंज।
Welcome back friends to Trans India, real people, real emotions, and we are in conversation with Ramratan Singhi of the Sure Group. What about facilities for drivers? Did you find that adequate?
Issue number one is that there is a lot happening now in terms of driver infrastructure and facilities. If you adhere to the good quality petrol pumps like from BPCL Ghar being one of that, where I observed that they had all the facilities for driver sleeping, also driver washing, driver taking bath, driver also getting food, good quality food, hygienic food, and getting proper diesel. So one of the things I would strongly recommend to all the fleet operators is that to encourage your drivers to reach out and go to these BPCL hubs, which are very modern, very clean and absolutely perfect in terms of facilities. Similarly, I also observed a few companies where we visited during the trip. They were also our customers, but we visited them also from the point of view of the transportation infrastructure. So they have now developed in the companies facilities for the driver resting, and these are really great facilities with driver also having to have good food inside the companies. So some companies have also been working on it. I would encourage more and more companies to do the same, because drivers ultimately drive the cargo for you from your manufacturing to your customers. And let us put it very bluntly, manufacturing a particular product is going to create some value, but the ultimate value is delivered when that product moves from that manufacturing to the consumer, and you as a company get the payment back from that customer. So the real value creation happens when the material moves. So therefore transport industry is very important and core of your overall operations, and I would encourage more companies to kind of help with driver infrastructure. But on the whole, I see that things are improving in this direction. The other point which I want to make here, which is a small point, is not all the drivers actually kind of feel comfortable or kind of have that kind of vision to go into these clean facilities. And you will see very often driver has a little bit of comfort going to that traditional dhaba, sitting in the traditional way, having his food in the traditional way, not being judged and not being observed, which is perfectly fine, because that's how his life is. He's a vagabond basically. So you have to give him that space, and therefore I don't see this as a major challenge, because when we talk to our drivers, we did try to give them a specific point where they should rest, but they said, sir, we are more comfortable where we know the people and where we know the food, and therefore we would probably not use those facilities. So we have to take both the things into consideration.
Ram, in terms of government intervention, in terms of policies, what kind of suggestions would you offer to the government which can make the logistics segment more efficient and competitive?
So one I already we discussed is the debottlenecking of the existing highways infrastructure is the simplest, shortest and the fastest way to help not only the logistics industry but India's MSMEs as well as industries which are into exports. Because if we have to compete in exports with the likes of China, we have to become super efficient. There is no other way. If we think of any other way, we will delay the eventual rise of India to become amongst the top economies in the world. So this is number one. Number two is a very small thing that the government can do today, which is the so when this government came to power, they started with this TDS deduction on the freight from the transporters. Now TDS deduction is fine because you want to record a transaction into your books, but doing the TDS deduction, the amount of working capital that we as a fleet operator have to kind of block impacts our overall working capital cycle, particularly in an industry where banks are very reluctant to lend to MSMEs, while government has been pushing the banks to do the lending, but it is extremely difficult to get loans from the traditional banks. So if they can reduce the TDS amount, like make it like some recommendation has also been done by ITWA to the government that it should be 0.1%, it can help free up our working capital. So these are a couple of things. Rest of the things I think government has done quite well with the FASTag implementation. One of the things I observed during my Namaste India trip was that none of the toll plazas, not even a single toll plaza, I had to wait more than 2 minutes to cross it. Now that is such a superb initiative by the government that it has reduced our truck times from, let's say, Delhi to Chennai by almost 120 minutes just because we don't wait on those toll plazas anymore.
So Ram, our final question. It has been a very exciting journey for the Sure Group so far. You had planned things have gone as per your plan. What is the future from here on?
So when you look at our growth from last 7 to 8 years that we have been in trucking ecosystem, we have now mostly kind of stabilized in our operations and also in our overall efficiencies of the truck running. Currently we are doing about 10 to 11,000 kilometers of each truck every month. So the first objective is to reach 12,500 kilometers of running for each truck, and then simultaneously work on the integration of trucking business with the cargo securing business, so wherein we offer to our customers a value added service of truck plus the cargo securing, and this has been going quite well with the strategy working out, particularly with the chemical sector and the liquid segment. So we intend to raise our first equity going forward in this year, which will be in private markets. We are looking at 10% dilution at a valuation of about 100 crores. That will be for 2022. By 2024, we intend to raise some more rounds of funds and eventually list in the NSE SME stock exchange or BSE SME stock exchange. One of the reasons that we think we should list going forward is that if you look at most mature markets in the world, you will find a few long haul trucking companies which are purely trucking companies listed on those markets, and trucking is a business which is like a forever business. No matter, there will be ups and downs, there will be some difficult periods, but it is a business that generates a sustained EBIT margins because it drives the economy. So when you want to drive the economy, you have to invest in stocks or the companies which are going to drive that part of economy, which will deliver value to the customers. So we think by 2024 sometime we should list in public stock exchanges. So that's the plan. And in terms of fleet, I already shared that we are at 110 today. By end of this year we should be at 220. We already have issued a letter of intent to Daimler India Commercial Vehicles for the next 110 trucks. These are on the way with a monthly addition of about 9 to 10 trucks going forward, and we are very excited about the future prospects of trucking business in India, and we think that this is the right time for those who are looking for investing in this ecosystem, that you should take the plunge now. There is one small couple of initiatives we are also working on again with our partners to improve the overall trucking ecosystem in India. So one is we are infusing our trucks with a lot of technology, and we are trying to work on challenges which are hampering the overall viability of this particular business. One of the key areas we are working on is reduction of accidents, which is one of the most challenging things that we have observed in last 8-9 years of our existence. So we are infusing our trucks with the forward collision detection camera. We are infusing our trucks with driver state monitoring systems. We have put also in a few trucks the HELA lighting systems, which gives a very good road visibility. This again came from my learning during the trip that I made, Namaste India trip, that the road ahead you need to see it more clearly to be able to put the brake well in time. So if you don't have a good visibility of the road ahead, then the driver will have to have very harsh braking, and that will impact the vehicle and may cause accidents. So we kind of learned from that. Another small experiment we are going to do very shortly is we are going to initiate somewhere in 2023 a revised or a more updated version of the driver relay model. Right now the details of that I would like to keep secret to ourselves and our group internally, but you will surely hear more from us on this aspect.
Well friends, a sure plan from the Sure Group. Ram is already packing his bags for the Namaste India trip part 2. Trans India will be tracking this journey closely and learning more about what are the difficulties on the routes that Ram has selected. We will be back with you next week with another very exciting interview and more news from the road transport industry. And a request, before you leave, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned, and until next week, stay safe. Jai Hind.